Hello there! So, today I wanted to share with you something very important and special to me as a Magic player. Something that's very important for my collection. And this is my legendary creature collection. Legendary creatures have pretty much always been, since I started playing the game back in 2012 with Return to Ravnica, pretty much always been my favorite type of card. So, I have just been collecting them the entire time that I have been a player of Magic the Gathering, and here are my several binders full of legendary creatures. And since Commander Masters is coming up here, I thought, what better time to finally show off my pride and joy, so to speak. So let's go ahead and just take a let's go ahead and take a look. Before we jump into the rest of the video, I'd like to give a huge thanks to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this video as part of the Magic Ambassador program. And keeping with that, I'd like to let you know about Magic's new set, the aforementioned Commander Masters. This is the first Masters reprint set for the Commander format, and as someone who's already gotten to open plenty of boosters for it, I can personally say that this set has been one of the most enjoyable experiences in a while for someone like me who just loves cracking packs. There's tons of awesome reprints and over 120 legendary creatures, my personal favorite type of card, many of which have super cool art treatments, like these gorgeous frame-breaking cards, and the really interesting and unique borderless profile legendary cards. Click my personal link down in the description to learn more, it would really help me out. And keep an eye out for Commander Masters, releasing August 4th. Alright, thanks for bearing with me. On with the video! Alright, so this here is the first binder. This is where we're going to begin. And, you know, as much as I'd love to, I probably am not going to be able to do all of my legendary creatures in one video, so it's probably going to have to be split up over multiples, which is a shame, but, you know, it's just going to have to be how it is, unfortunately. So, if we go in here, this is my sort of standard binder. I started playing, like I said, with Return to Ravnica, so obviously that's kind of where I started collecting. And this is all the legendary creatures printed in standard, just, you know, your normal premiere sets from Return to Ravnica onward. So, I started with Return to Ravnica. Niv Mizzet Draco Genius was my first legendary creature ever. Not this Niv Mizzet Draco Genius, unfortunately, because my actual one I traded away in 9th grade. I played him unsleeved in a deck. He was super beat up. I wish I still had him around, but you know, this is my replacement, and he's not the same, but he's fine. He's fine. Anyway, so we have all the guild leaders here. It's wonderful. Moving into Guild Pact, and then Dragon's Maze. And Dragon's Maze is really interesting because, you know, it was the first booster box I ever opened, and you know, it's considered kind of a low power, low value set nowadays. And even at the time, it kind of was. But I was just so excited to be opening those packs, and I had such a good time opening those packs. And one of the reasons was that I kept opening all these legendary creatures that I thought were so amazing. And, you know, there were 10 legendaries in that set, all of the maze runners, so to speak. And it's kind of interesting because 10 is not a lot of legendary creatures for a set nowadays. You know, we just, obviously, Commander Masters has over 120. Lord of the Rings had just so many. Dominaria United was packed with them. March of the Machines was packed with them. But back then, like, you know, Return to Ravnica, 5. Gatecrash, 5. Dragon's Maze, 10. That was a lot. And I was super excited to see all these. I especially loved Melek. Is it Paragon? Because, you know, like Niv Mizzet Draco Genius, I was very much is it kind of person. Moving on here to Theros, we have the God cards, Magic's first God cards, and I think the God cards are really incredible, just because, I mean, it's just so cool to see how the gods are represented on different planes. I love different real-world mythologies, so see how they connect to and how they're related to them, it's just really cool for me to see. I was blown away when I first saw that they were making God cards, like, just the turn of phrase. Oh, that's just so... I love it. I was never able to open any of the original Theros gods in packs, unfortunately. I was able to acquire them through other means. For the longest time, though, Perforos and Nylea here, Perforos, God of the Forge, Nylea, God of the Hunt, I was not able to acquire. I just, you know, they were, like, too expensive, or no one had them for trade. I just could never get them. And eventually, my partner, I think my first birthday after we were together, she got them for me, and that was very, very sweet of her. I was able to finally fill in these two holes that I had had for such a long time. Similarly, Brima's King of Ereskos was another one where I just, for a long time, had that big hole there. This Karametra is actually what I traded my Niv Mizzet for. Might be able to see it's a little beat up around the edges. And that's because that kid also, played all his cards unsleeved. Moving in here to, we have this, frame change that comes with Magic 2015. We have Sliver Hive Lord, which I love Slivers. I adored Slivers. I've always wanted to make a Sliver Commander deck and never got around to it. Conveniently, though, I guess I don't need to now because we have the Sliver Precon with Sliver Grave Mother. And I think Sliver Hive Lord is actually in that, so that's really, really cool. With Khans of Tarkir, Khans of Tarkir is when I really started getting into the Magic story, and I also think it's kind of when Wizards was really trying to focus and sort of revamp the story with all the web stories that were coming out with a lot more frequency, a lot more consistency, and it was really cool to see, and I really got into it. And actually, Khans of Tarkir is where I initially planned to start my lore series. I ended up obviously starting later in the timeline, but I was starting to plan with Khans of Tarkir because that's where I started. But I started writing the script, and it just was not working because it just, you go and it just wasn't a good place to start is kind of the point I'm trying to make. But someday I'd like to go back to that. Moving into Fate Reforged here, we have so those are the cons, then we have the past cons and the past dragons, and then the alternate timeline cons and the future dragons that are in our elder dragons. I love the whole concept with the time travel they did in Fate Reforged. I thought it was really cool, really well executed. Origins is when they really started going like, okay, here are our characters, here's their backstories, we're going to be focusing on these guys, which is a reasonable thing to do, but like, it was cool because so we got these flipwalkers, legendary creatures that transform into planeswalkers. I love flipwalkers. I think they're always such cool, so often very flavorful designs. I really want to see more of them. We've gotten the 5 that were in Origins, and we got Nicol Bolas later in M19, I think, and we just haven't gotten any since, and I really hope to see more of them. Even like a desparked walker, now that we have had the planeswalkers losing their spark, like a planeswalker on one side that transforms into a legendary creature when it like runs out of loyalty counters, I don't know. Anything. I just love flipwalkers. So then we have, moving into Battle for Zendikar, obviously that's where I ended up starting my lore series proper. One thing I would do if I could kind of go back and change things, though, is I would focus... when I conceptualized the series, I was really like broad overview, very broad strokes. So I skipped a lot of the details, which I'm a little more detail-oriented, especially for some of the juicier stuff now. But, like, there was a whole story with Gideon and Noyandar, and, like, General Tazri, she was a very important character. I just totally brushed over things like that. And I would think if I were to go back and redo, I would put a more focus on some of those characters. Drana had a whole very important story about her. But anyway, we have the couple Eldrazi Titans here, Olamog the Ceaseless Hunger and Kozilek the Great Distortion, both of which have the new borderless profile art in Commander Masters. And I've seen some people say they don't like that art very, the style very much, especially with the blank background. I think they're really interesting and unique, to be honest. It is a very different take than a lot of art styles that we've seen in Magic before, a lot of different art treatments. So even though it's unusual, I think that's a very good thing. And I think it's especially cool with characters like this that aren't, don't have like humanoid heads and faces. So it's much less of just like, oh, it's a human head in profile. No, it's like these magnificent, monstrous, eldritch beings. You get to really see close-ups of them, which we don't see too often. So I think they're really cool. I'm very happy that we have those. Shadows over Innistrad here. We got, some nice transforming legendaries. Emrakul, the Promised End, this beautiful creature. Sad that she wasn't reprinted in Commander Masters. I would love to have had a borderless art for her, but you know what? I'll live. We also have the meld cards here, so obviously Bruna, the Fading Light, and Gisela, the Broken Blade, meld together into Brizella, Voice of Nightmares. I love meld cards. I think they're. I keep saying this about a lot of different type of cards. I love a lot of different types of cards. Meld cards are really interesting to me. I really like seeing what they do with them. And we just saw them in Brothers War, which I thought was super cool. And we also have Handweir, the Writhing Township, the opposite faces of which are not even legendary. So Handweir always stays transformed. Got going through Kaladesh, super nice. I am including legendary vehicles in this collection because although there's not creatures by default, they have a power and toughness. They turn into creatures most of the time you're playing them. They're gonna be legendary creatures, so I have them in there. Ragavan, back in his token days in Ether Revolt, much less vilified than he is now. And we move into the Amonkhet gods, which I think are super nifty in the way that they differentiate from the Theros gods. Whether the Theros gods are enchantments that are not always creatures. The Amonkhet gods are always creatures, but they have conditional attacking and blocking requirements. And I think it's an interesting way to differentiate them. My foil Samut, voice of Dissent there. Neheb the Eternal, that is another card that has a borderless treatment. And it's another one where it's like, that's a just, big Lazotep-coated ram skull. And it just looks really cool in that close-up profile. The Insect gods, we have those as well. The insect gods are so fascinating to me. The old Amonkhet gods that were forgotten and reshaped by Bolas. And although the scorpion god is like super, super very dead, I do want to see more of the locust and scarab god when we eventually go back to Amonkhet. So then we move in. You're not too much exciting in Ixalan, but then in Rivals of Ixalan, we have the Elder Dinosaurs. I just love when they slap Elder on a legendary creature. Just, it makes him so much cooler in a way. So all these regular Elder Dinosaurs, as well as Zakama, the Primal Calamity, that big boy 3-headed Elder Dinosaur. Also, I believe has a borderless profile art. I'm glad they got to fit all 3 heads in there. It must have been a bit tricky to do. We have a Zor, the Sphinx, the founder of the Azorius, and the former Planeswalker. Moving into Dominaria. Dominaria was really interesting because it was the first set since basically the Kamigawa block where they were really like, okay, legendary creatures. That can just be a thing that we do. And that will be the theme, that will be the gimmick. We can put legendaries at uncommon. And, that was the gimmick, that every pack you opened had a legendary creature in it. And as somebody who was already starting this collection, I was ecstatic. I was blown away by just the sheer volume of legendary creatures, and I loved how much, it wasn't always the case before, but they really tried to do a little more to make sure that each legendary creature had a story and purpose. And most of the legendaries in this set do actually, maybe not most, but at least, no, I think most actually do appear in the stories, in the proper stories of Dominaria, which is really cool to see. And I'm always very happy to see that. I think it was really neat. I got my foil Yargle Glutton of Urborg, of course. Very wonderful. Yeah, and I actually, this was the first set I ever opened 2 booster boxes for, and it was just because I love the set so much. And so Slimefoot the Stowaway and Tatiova Benedict Druid also each have really gorgeous. Those are 2 of my favorites in the whole borderless profile art treatments. I think they're just so nice what they did with them there. We got a lot of cool, important characters like Raph, Shauna, Tiana, Joyrall, the new Weatherlight crew, the Weatherlight itself. We also have Firesong and Sunspeaker, who was the first unique buy-a-box promo, which that was actually part of the reason I got 2 boxes, was because I got one of the boxes online, not realizing I wouldn't get the buy-a-box promo. And I just really wanted it, so I went and got another box. I ended up opening a foil Mox Amber, though, so it was all good. Got the, second version of all those Elder Dragons, Nicol Bolas and his siblings. Nicol Bolas the Ravager, of course, the other Flipwalker I was mentioning, transforms into Nicol Bolas the Arisen. I very badly want to see more Flipwalkers. Very, very badly. Got some Guilds of Ravik here. A nice pre-release Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice. Tons of really cool cards in the Ravnica block. I'm a big fan of all the characters. Like I kind of said earlier, the guild leaders, I think, are always such cool characters, such cool character designs, just visually. I really love to see it. Then, moving into War of the Spark, which had a lot of legendary creatures, and also the God Eternals, which again, it's another thing that just blew me away when they're like, hey, the gods that died on Amonkhet, they're back. And they are Eternals. Just even the type line, legendary creatures, zombie god, is just so cool. I really love what they did with them. Honestly, a shame that they all ended up dying anyway, but loved it. Well, obviously, Fibblethip finally got his own card. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Awakening of Vitu-Ghazi, obviously not strictly a legendary creature, but it might as well be. Turns a land into a legendary creature named Vitu-Ghazi. Might as well be a 5/5 or 9/9 for 5 legendary creature. And War of the Spark was also great because it really got to, like, Massacre Girl, Fibblethip, a new Krenko and Neheb, but, like, Feather, that's another one. Just creatures that had not gotten cards before, but were characters in the story, and they were really able to take advantage of that, thankfully. Moving right along here, we get to, so we have the 3-color legendaries in M20. Kaikar Wind's Fury is another one that has a borderless profile. It's kind of an interesting one because, he's a bird, and it's not just a normal human head profile. I say he actually don't know Kaikar's gender. It's kind of hard to tell when they're, when they're a goose, when they're just a big old goose head. But nonetheless, I do like Kaikar. We also have our, 3-color version of Omnath as colors continue to be added to him. And also we have Eldraine here. Eldraine, obviously, we're just about to revisit in Wilds of Eldraine. Eldraine is one of my favorite planes. I really love what they did with it, combining a lot of, Grimm's fairy tales and classic fairy tales and Arthurian legend to make a really interesting world. And I am very excited to see what they do in Wilds of Eldraine. We do have here, a lot of these characters are dead now because we just saw them, like Araya, we just saw in March of the Machines, she's Phyrexianized and dead. Rankle and Toberon teamed up, Lyndon is dead, Kenrith is dead. Fun stuff. We do have these cards here, these 4 are actually all from the Brawl decks that they released. It's the only time they've ever released, like, proper Brawl decks. But they do have the, ELD code and the Eldraine set symbol, so I just put them in here with the other standards. I don't actually remember if they were standard legal or not. Not very important. Back to Theros Beyond Death. We got the demigods, which are really cool. We have the new versions of the main 5 gods, plus a couple others. I got this foil Thassa Deep Dwelling open in a pack. It was super cool. Heliod Suncrown, this one in particular, is a gift from my younger brother, and that was very nice of him. A lot of cool flavorful stuff like Illyrios there, obviously, based on Narcissus. I really like a lot of the stuff they do with Theros and Greek legend. Unfortunately here, this is the first gaps I have in this particular binder, and these are the Titans, Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger, and Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, both of whom I just haven't managed to get my hands on yet. Kroxa should be a bit easier now because he was just reprinted in March of the Machine, so he's definitely gone way down in price as the supply has gone up, so I'm probably going to get him pretty soon, but Uro has thus far evaded me as well. Ikoria, again, and on a ton of just really cool legendary creatures, like the Mutate Apex Predators. I love the Apex monsters. I also really love the Mutate mechanic. I know that was, a lot of people didn't like playing with it, thought it was a bit too complicated or just made messy board states. But Ikoria is one of the sets I really got into the limited for. I played a ton of Ikoria Draft. I loved playing Mutate decks. I just thought they were super, super fun. And similarly, Companion. Obviously, Companion, super busted mechanic. Never should have been printed like it was. But nonetheless, a draft is where I felt Companion, worked best. Because if you drafted a deck and managed to make it work with a Companion, it felt earned. It felt more proper as opposed to just throwing them in any old deck like was often what happened. Oh, by the way, as well, when I have sleeves in a spot, that just means I have the card. It's just in a deck. So this card here is in my Karlov of the Ghost Council Commander deck. We've got Zilla, King of the Monsters here, which, they just printed him in the Godzilla sort of Universes Beyond sort of, reskin. I say reskin like that because Zalortha Strength Incarnate, the card it's supposed to be, never actually got his own art. Like, they had art. They just did not actually print it. That is, until Commander Masters. So I'm very happy that they have finally rectified that mistake. This here, I believe, is Veto, Thorn of the Dusk Rose. Azusa Lost But Seeking, another card that has a borderless profile art that is very pretty. Azusa is also interesting because for a long time they just didn't reprint legendaries in standard sets. That's just not something they did. I think the last time they did it before Azusa was, I want to say 10th edition. They reprinted like a cycle of 5 monocolor legendaries. But after that they just kind of stopped doing it until we had Azusa here. So I have my nice foil Azusa. Happy to see. Moving then to our Return to Zendikar. Obviously, we got our 4-color Omnath. We got all that fun stuff. Kaldheim is, back to gods, back to different types of gods. And it's another thing where it's just like, wow, it is so cool to see how these gods differ. Obviously, all of these gods don't have indestructible and are always just normal creatures, but they all have their special, attached either artifacts or another creature or whatever it is on the backside that can be cast as an alternate, as these are all modal double-face cards. And I think it's Halvar God of Battle I especially love. I had a Brunner Battlehammer deck on Arena Brawl deck that Halvar is just an absolute all-star in for equipment decks. Absolute all-star. I am missing another here. This is Valky, God of Lies, the one that transforms into Tybalt. And this one is Essica, God of the Tree. This here is Vorinclex, and oh my god, Vorinclex. I was so thrilled when that got spoiled. Just on so many different fronts. Like, the Phyrexians are back. Phyrexian is a creature type now. Phyrexians have figured out how to travel between planes. There were just so many implications, and I was very, very happy to see Vorinclex show up on Kaldheim. Moving through to Strixhaven, we have the Deans here, which are interesting because they are also modal double-face cards. So, like, Shale, Dean of Radiance, is also Embrose, Dean of Shadow. But I have 2 of each of those cards so I can show both characters because they are totally different characters. I felt like I just kind of felt like I had to show both of them off, We have more Elder Dragons, which I always love. Got my foil Velomachus Lorehold there. Moving into Adventures in the Forgotten Realms for Dungeons & Dragons. And this is, a really interesting set because it's not Universes Beyond, technically. It is Dungeons & Dragons, which is a Wizards of the Coast property, so they're kind of keeping it in-house, and it doesn't have the Universes Beyond frame. But, it works. It works really well, the Forgotten Realms, with Magic's sort of vibe, especially. A lot of Universes Beyond branch out a little bit more than what Magic is used to, but Forgotten Realms really stayed in lane. And, the dungeon mechanic, I really enjoyed it, especially in Limited. Got my foil Acerak there. I am missing a couple of the dragons, so I'm missing the regular printing of Ebon Death and Old Gnawbone. But, I got my pre-release Orcus, Prince of Undeath, and we got Tiamat. And it was also interesting that we had a single set with 4 different legendary tokens, because they don't use legendary tokens that often. I mean, they use them a little more now, compared to before, but to get 4 different ones, 2 of which are gods, in a single set was really interesting to see. Then we have Innistrad, Midnight Hunter, a whole bunch of transforming legendary creatures, which is always really cool to see. A lot of, returning characters like Jissa and Ormondal. But they did a lot more new characters, I felt like, than normal for a return set, like Adeline, Lear, Jadar. I think some of them had been featured on flavor text, but, hadn't gotten cards before. Then we have... Oh, I was very happy to see... Well, first of all, Liesa, I think, is a super cool character. I was happy to see her get a card. But Ludwig, so thankful that he got a card that is, at the very least, more... Even though it's not the most powerful card, it is at least way more flavorful than the card he got way back in Commander 2016, I think. That was just total miss, in my opinion. And yeah, moving on here, we have a whole bunch of really cool cards, a lot of transforming cards. Thalia was, I think, is the first legendary creature to maybe ever be reprinted in a standard set outside of core sets. I might be wrong about that, but I think that is the case. I think every other legendary creature like Azusa that's been reprinted in a standard set has been in a core set. I think Thalia might be the one exception. Here I am missing Olivia Crimson Bride. But otherwise, yeah. So this is where this particular binder ends because I just kind of ran out of room. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to kind of continue with the rest of my standard collection in a different video. But moving on, I do have alternate printings basically of these cards, not from different sets or anything, but just if any card has like an alternate frame or alternate art for whatever reason, but the same set symbol, I just kind of wanted to put it back here. So we have like this borderless, not borderless, but like extended art sort of. Melik is it Paragon. We have Enthusa and Tromacratus. I believe either one or both of those is a pre-release promo. These would be the San Diego Comic-Con versions of the Origins Flipwalkers. But then we also have the Origins, the intro decks had face cards that had unique art. So that is all 5 of these. We've this nice buy a box promo of Thalia, Heretic Cathar. And then we have the invocations. I only have one invocation, and it is Bontu the Glorified. Also a gift from my partner, which I was very, very thankful for. Invocations are another one where a lot of people really don't like him, and I understand why. It especially sucks that, the text isn't very legible, the art is really small. I really like the frame, though. I was very, very mixed about it at first, but I think it's just super, super nice and flavorful, frankly. I just think it's I appreciate unique designs. This is a really unique design compared to what you normally see in Magic frames, and I really appreciated that. Moving right along here, so this would be all the invocations. We have the 5 monocolor gods and the 3 insect gods. And we have Zahid, Shana, and Mara. Some cool art. These are the San Diego Comic-Con versions of the God Eternals, which came in a set with Nicobolas, Dragon God. And my partner whom I mentioned collects planeswalkers. So she got the planeswalker, I got all the legendary creatures, and these are really cool for a couple reasons. One, obviously, I really like how they use the negative space. So God Eternal Ketra here has Parhelion there. You can see Vitu Ghazi making up the negative space of God Eternal Ronus, that spark for God Eternal Bontu. And also, I don't know how well it'll pick up on camera, but there's kind of this gloss effect on the black part of the card where is matte on the rest of the artwork, and it creates a really nice effect when you look at it in certain light. Now, this is where they introduced showcase frames and started doing them for every set, and it became a regular thing. Technically, that started with Throne of Eldraine, but Throne of Eldraine just had those for adventure cards, and they did not have any adventure cards that were legendary, so no legendaries got showcase frames. But for Theros, they did them for all the gods and all the demigods. I really, really like the Constellation frames. I think they're super cool, super on point with Theros' flavor. I honestly really, really love them. I do have the Heliod in my Karlov deck, but unfortunately I am missing Thassa there. Then we have Ikoria with the really cool sort of comic book style mutate frame. We also have the Godzilla cards, of which I am missing 3 of the Apex Predators, but I am sure I will get them at some point. This would be the... this is also when they started going back to regular buy-a-box promos, like just alternate art of cards that were already in the set, which is honestly probably for the better, so you don't end up with stuff like that one... Wow, I'm totally blanking on what the card's called, but the one that got, banned and was not a very good time. But yeah, this would be the borderless Valky God of Lies, because he has a planeswalker on the other side. He got a borderless version. We got the Vikings Legend frame, which I think is really neat. This is Kazuma, God of the Voyage, who's in my Ktori Pilot Prodigy deck. This would be Valky God of Lies. I have no versions of Valky. Here I have this version of Essica. I just don't have that regular version. Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. This is probably my favorite of all the Vikings Legends art. It's just, for lack of a better word, it's metal as heck. Like, just look at that. It is so, so cool. Vorinclex looks really awesome in that iteration. And this was a present from my other brother, so thank you to my other brother. This is Koma, Cosmic Serpent that I'm missing. And we have Vorinclex as well in the Phyrexian text. It sucks that you can't read the Phyrexian text on any of the Phyrexian cards. It looks so cool, though. It looks so cool. So we have Borderless Mila there. We have the Borderless dragons. I am missing a couple of those, Beladros Witherbloom and Shadrick Silverquill, whereas my Tanazir Quandrix is in another one of my EDH decks. Then we have the borderless Dragons for Forgotten Realms that I'm missing most of them, but I do have all of the showcase cards for this set, which were the rulebook cards, which I personally am not a big fan of. I just would never personally. I would never play a rulebook card over the regular version of that card. But it's unique, and that's what I was saying. Like, I just appreciate that they did something unique with it, and something that is very flavorful for Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I can appreciate that. Innistrad has a lot of showcase frames here. They have the Equinox frame for Midnight Hunt, which is what they ended up using for March of the Machine when they had to pick a particular frame to represent Innistrad. They picked the Equinox frame, but we also have the Eternal Night frame here, which is really cool when you can see that. I don't know how well it'll show up, but the sort of crown and the purple border here, it has a different kind of sort of effect than the rest of the card. Like, it's a bit glossy compared to the matte of the border. It doesn't show up as well in foil, but that's okay. Moving through here, we have the Fang showcase for Crimson Vow for all the vampires, which is pretty neat. I am also missing the Olivia Crimson Bride there. And I have this Grolnok, which is really funny because the printer must have messed up because, like, it's normally this nice green and blue, right? This is just like a weird cloud. This is kind of pretty much the only legendary misprint I have, and I'm pretty sure it's a pretty common misprint, but kind of interesting nonetheless. I do keep him in there. And then we have the Dracula cards, and this might sound a little silly, but well, at the time this set came out, I had not read Dracula. I didn't really know much about Dracula except for the very basics. Just like a month or two ago, I read it for the first time, and believe it or not, my knowledge of the universes beyond, arts and frames and everything for the Dracula cards really heightened my enjoyment of the book, just because I was really able to go like, oh wow, well, first of all, I can visualize the characters better because I see how they've been depicted here, but then also like, oh, that's the exact text from this part of the book, and that's why that event is important, and that's that exact text, and oh, this is how this character is represented flavorfully, and just a lot of it is honestly really cool. I really, really like what they did with Dracula as being, a common domain, public domain rather, property. I would like to see more of this as opposed to like the Godzilla treatments. I would like to see more like this. I think they did an absolutely excellent job with this, and it was super on point for being Crimson Vow, the vampire set. And that is all for this particular binder. So, thank you very much for watching, kind of sitting through my rambling through my collection here. As I said, collection is very important to me, so I do have a lot of memories and feelings attached to a lot of these cards. So thank you so much for watching, especially if you've watched all the way to this point. Please let me know what you thought about this. If people like it and would like to see more, I have much more exciting cards in some other binders. All my secret layers and all my commander cards and all my cards from the master sets, all stuff like that. Not unfortunately, but I needed to start at the beginning. A very good place to start. So, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought, for better or for worse. I would love to hear your opinions, both on the video and on my collection, what you think so far. Thank you. Yeah, I've just like the fifth time I've said it, but thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.